And this morning we're hearing from our Hawaii delegation regarding that over 2-week shutdown that is now over. The doors of federal government wide open today after a deal was approved ending that partial shutdown and avoiding a potentially catastrophic default. This morning we're speaking with Senator Mazie Hirono, who joins us live via phone from Washington, D.C. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
So we just heard from the president regarding this deal that was finally approved, but this is really only a temporary fix.
Well, the president pointed us in the direction that we ought to be going, which is that we should now be having a budget conference, negotiations on the budget, which the Senate has been asking the House to do since March when the Senate passed the budget bill. And he said immigration reform is critical, something I worked on very hard as a member of the Judiciary Committee, another Senate bipartisan passed bill, and the third is passing the Farm Bill. So I like the fact that he said that there have been no winners here, that because we have disagreements doesn't mean that we ought to govern through dysfunction. But that we should focus on those things that we can do, and those three areas we can do, I hope, by the end of this year.
But how do we build America's trust again after going through this?
By one way is to accomplish these areas, to address these areas and come to a bipartisan agreement. These are huge areas that coming up with a budget. We have a lot of philosophical policy disagreements between Democrats and Republicans, but we've set the stage for those kinds of negotiations to occur. The comprehensive immigration bill that was supported in a bipartisan way in the Senate, and the Farm Bill is really important to a lot of farmers throughout our country. So when we can accomplish solid accomplishments in these areas, that is one of the ways that we are going to restore the trust of the American people. We know that they are fed up with this kind of dysfunction, and the basic responsibilities of government, which is to keep government running and to pay our bills, those should never be used as a political football in the way that it was used. So this manufactured crisis is not the way to go. And again, if we can accomplish bipartisan agreement of the three huge areas that the president mentioned by the end of the year, it will go a long way to restoring some faith in government and our ability to get things done. And
growing jobs as well. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Senator Hirono, for speaking with us this morning. And this morning, we're also hearing from our delegation in the House of Representatives, and we have Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard live on the phone now. Good morning, Tulsi.
Good morning.
Thanks for speaking with us. So again, we heard from the president this morning regarding this latest legislation that ends the partial shutdown and sends people back to work. But what do you tell all these federal workers who have been out of work for the last 2 weeks?
Well, first of all, I want to say how many folks I've heard from who have just said that they have never been more happier than they are now to be returning to work. It's been a tough 16 days where people have been waiting really on the edge, wondering if and when that next paycheck will come. So I think folks are excited to return to work. Along with the legislation that was passed was legislation that will include back pay for those who are involuntarily furloughed. So even though it's been an extremely difficult time with this shutdown that was completely preventable, at least there is a small level of certainty going forward now.
Well, the president did call on Congress that business, how it's done there, has to change. And how do you think that change can happen?
My hope is that these past 16 days have been a wake-up call, as all of us have heard from people who've been impacted by this, working families, veterans, fishermen. I mean, every single sector of our community has been impacted, and that we need to keep that in mind as we head down this next chapter of coming to a bipartisan resolution for the budget by December 13th, which was included in the legislation that was passed and signed into law last night, so that we don't allow ourselves to be put in this situation again where the brunt of the effect of this shutdown and running up against the debt ceiling really falls squarely on the back of the American people.
And frustration is probably the key feeling right now amongst most of America, and I'm guessing that that's the delegation, Hawaii delegation's feelings as well on this whole debacle.
I think that the feeling here is reflective of the feelings and the thoughts and concerns that we've heard from folks on every single island back home in Hawaii as the last 16 days have played out, is just saying politics as usual, this partisan politics is not acceptable. People are demanding something that is very reasonable, and that is that Congress work, act in a responsible manner, pass a budget, make sure we have a government that's functioning, and really look forward to long-term fiscal strategy that will include a strategy for economic growth as well as cutting and reform where we can.
All right, well, we'll all be waiting and watching. Thank you very much, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
Thank you. Aloha.